Hey, it's Osman with House Einstein, and I'm here with a notable sale and a market update for today, February 21st, 2020. Here's the quick market update. There were 73 new listings this week, and already about 16% of those are under contract. And there were a little bit fewer than 1,200 listings on the market here in Boulder County, of which a little more than half are under contract, 52%. And in the city of Boulder, there were 468 listings, and about 45% of those are currently under contract. In a House Einstein business update, we've been involved in bidding wars since about December, and it's been a bit of a surprise to see that much activity this early in the year. I don't think this type of activity will likely last throughout the spring and summer, but for now, that's what we're dealing with. And we were lucky this week. We were working with a buyer and just put them under contract after multiple attempts. And in this particular case, we got there early. The snowstorm probably helped us this week, and we got our offer submitted by 10. With the negotiations carried on through the day, and we were under contract by 5 o'clock. So I'm pretty excited about that particular client and that deal because we were struggling to get them under contract. And for this week's blog post, I've got a new notable sale for you. It is 3091 6th Street. This historic 2-bedroom, 1-bath house actually sold a year ago, and the owner went through quite a bit of process to potentially develop the property before reaching a conclusion that it wasn't a good fit. I'm not sure exactly what happened. It's possible that they didn't know about the zoning restrictions, the solar access rules, the setbacks for a corner lot, the limitations on house size called compatible development, and all of those things can add up to big bucks when you start considering the limitations that are posed on a potentially developable lot. And although they bought it only a year ago, they managed to get out, which was a bit of a surprise. It was listed in January, and it's just sold this past week. In an apparent bidding war, it sold for substantially over asking, which helped the seller cover their costs, their transaction costs, as well as, I'm sure, their architecture fees and maybe even some demo. Because when we toured the house, it looked like it had been partially deconstructed. So I'll include some of that video at the end of this so you can take a look at it. And if you like this content, please click like and subscribe. We're building this channel. And if you're looking for the full post on that notable sale, 3091 6th Street, you'll find it linked in the description below. Thanks for joining me. I'm Osman with House Einstein. Hey, it's Osman with House Einstein, and we are taking a look at 3091 6th Street in Boulder today. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath that just hit the market at 1.1. It's on a pretty decent sized lot, and depending on whether the home can be modified or not, the value might be there. It's new on the market this week. Let's take a look. Here's what it looks like out on the street. Newlands is filled with homes that have been expanded and remodeled, including the one across the street. It's also ground zero for compatible development. And this is the neighborhood where people were taking small homes like the one we're about to see. There it is. And completely redoing them and expanding them, much to the annoyance of some of the neighbors that felt they were out of character with the neighborhood. But you can take a look at a smaller remodel that's directly next to it that I think is one possible vision for what this house might look like, assuming that the city lets you, because if it was built prior to 1945, there is far less chance that the city will let you modify the front, and it's not safe to assume at all that that's going to be a possibility. So first things, all right, there's a pretty big crack at the entryway, and it looks to me like it's drooped substantially on the right side, and that could have been through bad grading. Even before we go in, we could take a look, and you know, it's very common to try to mask that with mulch. I'm not saying that's what the seller did here, but the mulch does look relatively new. And why don't we go ahead and walk the whole outside since we're starting it now. And what I'm primarily looking for are signs of negative slope and cracks in the foundation itself. The siding is vinyl, So can't really tell much there. And the mulch looks like it's maybe put in place last fall. You can see the old access door for a coal chute. And there's a little one-car garage tucked on the back side of the house. It's hard to tell with facing the sun, but the roof line actually looks pretty straight. You can hear the traffic noise, so this corner is getting some traffic. It is 10:45 on a Thursday, so not a particularly busy time of day. This slope on the backside is problematic. I mean, no obvious signs of damage, but with a vinyl-sided house, it's going to hide anything anyway. So you'd want to take a close look at this inner wall with your inspector, and if it doesn't exist now, you may want to plan for a French drain or something to remove the bowl-like impact, because right now the house is kind of sitting a little bit in the bowl. You'd want the water to drain out and around from the house. If it is historic, it's been here a long time, and if it's survived without structural issues to this point, it probably is fine, but that doesn't mean that there isn't damage on the inside. Tiny little patio on the back. Lots of wonkiness to it, probably roots, but also settling. And a little bit of paint overspray on the corner here, which suggests that that the vinyl siding and everything on the outside was recently sprayed. Maybe in the fall or last year, but possibly in preparation for sale to try to clean it up. You can see it overspraying the aluminum trim. A little bit of salt stain or overspray. So there's like, did you see the overspray on the window ledge? So I guess you haven't come around yet. I think they prepped it for sale like not too long ago, because it's got paint overspray. The grommets, see the grommets been painted too. So it was painted. Yeah. Probably in preparation for sale, but maybe not. It was painted recently.
Prepped it for sale is sort of a big statement.
Well, on the outside anyway. Okay.
You'll see.
We'll be muting that out of the video.
Those are in good shape.
So with a entry to the basement like this, and without a floor drain, this potentially becomes a swimming hole in the event of a lot of water coming in. And that's something you'd really want to think about and remedy. And this is probably reinforced concrete slab, but it's just a concrete slab out in the air. So this is not an inspection, but these are the things you'd want to talk about with your inspector and with your agent. There's definitely some negative slope over on this side, but from what I can see of the exposed foundation, I don't see anything scary. I would just want to do more work and make sure that in heavy rain events, you're not seeing foundation deterioration. All right, that's the outside. Let's take a look in. All right, we're walking in the door. And it's kind of cold in here, so one of the things I always recommend to my sellers who have a vacant house is that they leave the heat on for showings, because cold homes show poorly. No one wants to hang out in a house that's this cold. Curved archways are preserved, probably original. And you can see the power outlet's been added. It's probably Romex hiding behind the trim. Looks like the kitchen has been gutted. And there's black mastic on this floor. So I did not see any disclosures about asbestos, but mastic of a certain age has some chance of having asbestos in it. And that is also something you want to talk to your inspector about, and I would strongly advise getting this tested. I mean, not the end of the world to just rip it up and remove it and redo the floor. In fact, that may be the better bet anyway, given that there's signs of water damage and warping in the drywall or in the plaster, and it's almost certainly plaster given the age of the home. We'll come back to that room, little shrine area. And bedroom number 1. It also looks like it was painted inside, and the floor is not refinished. You can see there's signs of some wear and tear. Not uncommon to see power outlets like that one that have been added below the trim. Not saying it's safe, but it's not uncommon. Okay, so there is a copper pipeline going through the closet, which is kind of strange. We'll have to think about what's on the other side of that wall. There's a little access port to what looks like a dumbwaiter to the lower level. Floors have been removed. Again, you can see the mastic, but there is hardwood underneath. Historic, period correct tub. And you can also see straight down into the basement. I think the furnace has been removed. Okay, we're into bedroom number 2. And again, another gap where there's no ducting to where there should be a furnace. The room has been repainted. See the same single pane windows throughout the house with storm windows installed on the other side. So that's also something that would need to be addressed, and they're looking pretty much shot. Typical size closets. I mean, this is a classic layout for this age and style of home. Everything lines up. And there's a stairway to what should be an attic up there, but it is blocked off, so not sure where the access point is now, or if there even is one. But that is also something you're going to want to have a good look at. Okay, let's take a look at the basement. And basement video. And there's a light. When I first got into the business, basements like this scared me. And then I got over it. Now we just go into the basements and call it like it is. Okay, so interesting tear outs in the ceiling and paper fiber board ceiling, which also should be tested for asbestos. This is the doorway to that underground, water trap entrance to the basement. More pipe exposed, more cuts in the drywall. Good chance there was a flood here. And they've cleaned up maybe a pipe burst. Unclear why they would cut away so much of the ceiling, but ultimately you're going to want to remove it all and redo it anyway, since this is not drywall, it's some sort of fiber board that may or may not have asbestos in it. Water shut off. Little closet under the stairs. I don't really see the point in looking in there. You can see the plaster has been ripped up a little bit. And then we're into the second room in the basement. There is a inexpensive plywood wall that separates these rooms. And hot water heater is still here. And that's where the dumb waiter drops. I think it's just a clothing chute. It comes down that and fills a laundry basket. And the laundry room was set up in here with the hookups. So that's your laundry room hookup. And back in this corner, furnace, all the ducting has been torn out, so the furnace needs to be replaced. So the interesting challenge with a home like this is that it won't pass appraisal because it doesn't have a kitchen or a furnace, and those things are required for a bank to loan and get Fannie and Freddie to buy the loan. The knob and tube, you can see an old piece of knob and tube insulator hanging there. I don't see any other signs of it throughout the house. I see it's been replaced with Romex, which is right next to it. That's a good thing. And then there's a root cellar of some sort without a light source. And I don't think I'm going to go much further into this room, but it looks like just a root cellar or a wine cellar with a nice door to secure it. Some signs of salt stains. And that wraps up our tour of the basement of this house. So let's shut the lights off and head back up. So we're all wrapped up with this one, and my initial impressions without pulling comps and doing an analysis is it's a blank slate. If you don't have to retain the existing structure, it's a project for someone that wants to build a gorgeous spec home, just deconstruct this or relocate it. If you're stuck with this structure, then it's for somebody that's looking for an adorable cottage and wants to have that experience with an internal inside that's been modernized. And that's the house.